Broadcasting live from our New England studio, Solutions Review is proud to showcase Alteryx in the Solutions Spotlight, an inside look at enterprise technologies.
I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review, and welcome to the Solutions Spotlight featuring Alteryx, and focused on creating smarter analytics, from clean data to clear insights. AI is most powerful when it's not a separate tool, but a natural part of how we already work. When intelligence is built directly into our everyday systems and workflows, insights appear right where decisions are made. No extra steps, no switching between platforms. So today, we'll explore how new advances in analytics at Alteryx are making that possible, with pre-built workflows, intelligent automation, and practical AI assistance that enhance how teams analyze data and make decisions. So today, to walk you through this event from Alteryx, we're joined by Troy Wilson, Senior Product Marketing Manager, and Brandon Bach, Principal Sales Engineer. Gentlemen, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Doug. Great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for having us, Doug. Happy to be here.
Well, I'll tell you what, I am very glad you're here, not only because Alteryx is one of the leading solution providers in the space, but also this is just an incredibly exciting time for analytics and AI data. I mean, we're right on the cusp of massive changes, massive challenges. So I'm very excited about seeing this, not only the presentation, but the framing of where we're headed. I'm going to have a lot of questions after the fact. So I'm going to hand it over to you both. I think, Troy, you're gonna lead us off with a little bit of an overview, and then you'll be giving it to Brandon for a bit of a demo, and then I'll be jumping back in because, like I said, I have a bunch of questions, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. So take it away for now, and I'll catch up with you when you guys have finished through the demo.
All right. Thanks, Doug. Well, I want to start off with, let's get a level set of what we think, where we've seen companies and businesses, how they exist today. So it's disconnected tools. People are working manual process, or maybe they're pulling several sheets, or maybe they're pulling several databases, and it's very disconnected. That's a theme that we see predominantly through many companies that we talk to. Also, there's a skills gap. And the skills gap is not just, do I know how to code or can I code? It's also, do I have enough time with my experts to actually do the work? So do I have the knowledge and do I have the time? It's a gap that we need to be addressed. And then we have data silos. So many people are trying to figure out, how do I interact with my ERP system? How do I interact with my PLM system? How do I act with my finance, with my MES system? There's all this data that we need to be able to work with. It's contained in different silos. So how do we go forward from that? I like to put the picture into a roadmap is much more, can we take the disconnected tools and can we make them connected? But that's great, but can it be repeatable and transparent? So can I trust what I'm doing every time? So that is a key point we want to make sure that we address. Also, from a skills gap standpoint, it can be code free. I don't have to go learn a language. I don't have to go learn a new IDE or a new tool. Can I just work within what I already know? And can AI perhaps help me? Can I have AI influence my work in a way that is much more efficient, much more trusting, and is it governed and, again, scaled and repeatable? Finally, with the data silos, we want to be able to connect that data. And can I do that through an app? So I've got my code-free basis. Can I also now generate apps? Can I schedule those apps to run at a certain time or a certain place? Or how do I do that in a way that connects everything together to empower people with access to analytics and AI to transform your business? And I'm going to hand it over to Brandon. He's going to go through an actual practical use case of through three different lenses. One, how do you get insight right away, right? So how can I take AI? How can I use my data that I already have as a person, as a team, or as a part of an organization can become more valuable, right? How do I put that insight into my executives and my leadership team to make decisions for the business? Secondly, we want to be able to connect multiple streams of data, whether that's an Excel sheet, whether that's a database. Maybe we have some cloud native data that we want to be able to address. We want to be able to make sure we can do that. And then scale it with a governed deployment, right? We need to be able to show we know who is accessing the data. Can I access it? Am I confident in the data? And I think at the very end of the day, all of that brings in one word, it's courage. Do I as a user, or do I as a group or a team or a team leader, do I have courage to come in and say, here is exactly what's happening with my business. Here's exactly what's happening with my group. And do I have courage to move forward? So with that, as a level set, I'd like to hand it over to Brandon to walk through a practical use case and demonstrating that.
Excellent. Thank you, Troy, and thank you, Doug. I want to start, before I get into the actual demonstration, speaking to a bit of the analyst experience and the changing world of data and how we're all trying to adapt and evolve. I personally have been on the Alteryx journey for 13 years, going on 7 with Alteryx. And the reality of working with data is it lives in all different places, and people that are actually working with it to try and solve business problems are trying to do so with the tools that they have available. And so as you're thinking through what that analyst experience looks like, as well as what business leadership is looking for in terms of not only the current state, but looking forward, we're trying to figure out how to have the right tools, the right people, and the right process in place to bring it all together to really bring organizations into the future. And so with Alteryx, if you rewind just a minute, Alteryx really built the foundation of this amazing company by providing really easy to use tooling for people to perform all different types of analytics and create all different types of reports, feed dashboards, write to databases, but basically be this problem solving and automation toolkit for the analyst. And so that's great. But now with this world of AI that's evolving, everybody's trying to figure out, how do I get in on that action? How do I incorporate that into the way that I work to elevate the way that my business is working today? And so we recognize as an organization that there are ways that we can enhance that problem-solving experience to give the right tools to the analysts and give the right outcomes to business leadership so they can make decisions. And I'd like to start with this first lens that Troy was alluding to, which is creative output and for executives and stakeholders, really creating clear business-ready communications. And so I'm starting with this part of our platform, and Alteryx as a platform has a bunch of tools in it that come together to help analysts get to those outcomes. Auto Insights, which I'm going to cover first, is really about that business-ready, actionable insights that drive you to business decisions. And the reason why Auto Insights is innovative and a different way of looking at things is historically you would be building dashboards. So if you're watching this today and you're thinking about the way your business is operating, you might be thinking about all of the dashboards that you have for all the different things, and they may or may not address the business question you actually want. Because sometimes once you have a certain insight that you found, then it's okay, well, let's go through another set of analysis, build another dashboard, and continue to iterate. Wouldn't it be amazing if our technology could actually tell us what's happening with that data? And with Auto Insights, it's actually built to do exactly that. Rather than you having to take a data set and build a dashboard off of it to answer an explicit business question, you're feeding in a data set and it's automatically slicing that data across different levels of granularity and performing root cause analysis. And the reason that that's impactful is it's going to tell you exactly what's happening to your data and give you those insights in easily understandable language. So if you think about, again, the status quo today, you might have a lot of dashboards and tables being created, but then it's kind of up to the stakeholder, up to the person who's trying to interpret that information to make sense of it. And so Auto Insights, by just feeding in a data set and having those insights automatically generated for you, brings together the world of descriptive statistics and calculations with generative AI to bring you to the actual things that matter. So rather than you having to decipher from those charts and tables that have been generated historically, it's bringing you right to those answers that allow you to then act on them. The other thing that I mentioned was sometimes those types of analysis require then a deeper dive into what's causing them. So not only is Auto Insights performing a root cause analysis and your data is actually telling you what's impacting all of those different metrics that you care about, but when you find those interesting things that are happening, like large increases in contract manager here as an example, rather than going through an additional dashboarding exercise, I click into that and it does a subsequent deep dive analysis into the root cause for that key finding. So if you think about using this in practice, somebody has a data set that is ready for analysis. Auto Insights automatically tells you exactly what's happening to that information. And you're going to see the most likely causes of those changes that your data is telling you, rather than you having to build something explicitly for it. So I kind of look at this as a paradigm shift of the traditional business intelligence exercise, and really having, as new information comes in, new insights are generated, and you are immediately actioning on them, as opposed to going through an iterative process on gathering requirements and iterating through dashboards. But it gets better than that, because it's not only the creation of these charts and insights, but people ask for all different types of deliverables as well. So if you think about a lot of the analysts, they go through the gathering of data, the processing of data, the creation of an output, and then oftentimes they have to generate their own commentary and presentations as well. And so this can be a multi-week, multi-month process, maybe even longer if they need to wait for access to that data. And Alteryx has incorporated something called magic documents to make that even easier as well. So the amount of time I spend as an analyst interpreting information and writing up commentary to then provide to business leadership really could have been better spent diving into those insights further, or doing other things that were more valuable as it relates to my time. And so if I can fast track that too, that allows the analyst to then move to the next question, as opposed to being stuck on writing that commentary. So in Magic Documents, I can create all different types of deliverables. So what we just saw with the mission is something that is accessible by people. They can log in, go through all of the results and get answers. But sometimes people want a presentation as well. So if I want a PowerPoint presentation, or maybe an email draft, or a message to all different types of audiences, maybe even speaking different languages if you're operating across the world, what you're able to do is have it automatically generate a presentation for you. And this is impactful not only because it then creates, in this example, a PowerPoint deliverable, but it's something that is just instantaneous. And I can now download that and use that as part of my presentation material for that leadership team. It's not only going to include those key findings that came from that mission we just saw previously, but it's actually going to have the additional information, again, in easily digestible language. So rather than you having to interpret from charts and tables or manually write commentary yourself, it's automatically generating that. You'll notice here, it also includes things called recommendations. You can choose whether or not you would like to keep recommendations or not that are AI generated. And what that basically means is that it's going to, based on the findings, based on what it's actually interpreted from the data, what to potentially do about that. Some people like to have those recommendations included. Others like to come to those conclusions on their own. Either way, you can tweak this to be exactly as you'd like. Now, you might be thinking, okay, in the world of generative AI, how do I trust that this is getting me to the answers that I expect? And this is where it's a beautiful combination of trusted statistical calculations combined with generative AI, to where if we go back to this mission really quickly, all of these calculations, these changes, how the metrics are moving across all the different dimensions of the data, these are all based on specific trusted mathematical calculations. So I'm not concerned about, I ask, an LLM to calculate this specific thing, and it's maybe doing so, but doing it in a way that I'm not expecting. In Alteryx, Auto Insights has been built so that you trust those calculations, so that when you get to magic documents, when you get to that final calculation and the insights that are driving off of it, I'm not concerned about these values actually being correct. It's driving off of these calculations that are trusted, that are calculated correctly, that I can know are going to be informing my business in a way that leads to trusted decisions. So that's really important. Now, when we think about this mission and you're seeing this beautiful information and these insights being created, you might be thinking, okay, well, what's actually driving that? I have data in all of these different systems, and I have all of this business logic that is required in order to get information from these different places. How is the analyst empowered to load in a data set like this? In some cases, sure, I can point to perfectly clean data and everything will flow and everything's great. But what if that data is living in 5 different places? I need to combine it. I need to apply some business logic, and I need to then have that fed into something like Auto Insights. And that's where Alteryx, whether you are still working with a lot of on-prem systems, whether you're working with a lot of cloud systems, or whether you're somewhere in the middle, Alteryx caters to your entire technology stack. And so if I jump into our designer experience, again, this works either locally or in the cloud or with both. Alteryx is able to access data anywhere. So that's one of the key strengths, is that you're empowering people of all skill sets to work with data where it lives. So it doesn't matter if that is in local files on a computer or on a network drive. It could be data living in databases. It could be data that's up in the cloud, in a cloud data warehouse. And all of these different places that you work with, you're able to use a no-code experience that's also code-friendly to see exactly how your data moves through an entire process. So as I read data in, you'll notice I've got some labels up top. As I input data, as I prepare that data, as I blend it together, even from different places, I'm operating in a single experience across my entire technology stack, doing predictive analytics, creating whatever outputs I need, and maybe even doing geographic or demographic analysis. This is able to exist as a cohesive process. And not only that, but Troy was mentioning this idea of this transparency. And within Alteryx, I'm able to see, as I click through any of these tools in the Alteryx workflow, I'm able to see down at the bottom of the screen, in my results window, I'm actually visually seeing how the data is transformed or cleansed or blended together through the entire process. So if you think about analysts that have to pass work as they get promotions, as they take on new projects, or even as things need to be reviewed, you've got complete transparency into the process. And this alleviates a huge challenge of people coming into new roles and having to upskill. Now, this is a lot of kind of traditional data blending, a bit of ETL and analytics together. Now, how does this come into the world of generative AI? This is a lot of deterministic logic, setting a series of steps. Of course, a process I build, I can automate. You'll find tremendous value in just taking manual process in your organizations today, setting a workflow up and automating that so it runs consistently. But now in the world of generative AI, how do we begin to apply those concepts in the context of this data processing world. And that's where Alteryx has incorporated generative AI tooling to do so. And if you think about why you might want to use generative AI in a data process, a lot of people are trying to figure that out today. And maybe first steps have been drafting up emails more effectively, or maybe they're generating marketing content. There's a bit of the creativity side of large language models that we're seeing organizations adopt. But in data processing, people are asking the question, well, how do I use this in, for example, a workflow? And Alteryx realized that we're able to use generative AI to actually solve a lot of the common data challenges that people face and incorporate that in a way that it accelerates your ability to get to those perfect data sets, as well as use the best of what generative AI has to offer. So I'm not going to go through all of these tools today, but I will cover a couple of high-level points here. The first is this concept of schema fit. And if you think about data that lives in different places, it's not just that it's in different systems that don't talk. And I address how Alteryx is able to bring that together in one place. But it's also this inconsistency in formats and potential data quality issues. So as an example here, I might have data that I have just received from a certain system. And this has, say, patient ID, name, sex, date of birth, telephone, and email. Very common to get files in all different types of formats. And then imagine I either have an existing process or maybe a database that has data in a similar but slightly different formatted, different column names. You'll notice here things like phone numbers have formatting. I've got a first and a last name, as opposed to in my other data set, I have that name that's all combined together. So if you're in a manual process, maybe you're working in spreadsheets today, you're using a lot of formulas to get that information in exactly the right format and structure so that you could use that in your other process or in your database. And even in Alteryx historically, you would have to do things like split those to columns based on the space in the names. You'd have to use some formulas to format those types of telephone numbers. And so wouldn't it be amazing if we could use generative AI to look at a source schema and a target schema and automatically convert that and adjust it and cleanse it for you? And so what you'll see here is that with this schema fit tool, it's just drag and drop. I'm able to take this from the toolbar and just drag and drop it and use it to adjust that data to what I need. And so here you'll see that I've got two outputs coming from this tool, a T and a D output anchor here. The T is going to show me the actual steps that it has identified need to be taken in that standardization. So it's not just adding Gen AI, it does it, and then I have no idea what's happening. It's actually going to show exactly what transformations are required in order to get your data from that source to that target state. And not only that, but people who are coming from, a desire to have no code, but also want to have an understanding of maybe a code-based equivalent. Maybe you've got some Python developers and you want to collaborate here. It's also going to show you what Python code is actually required if you were to do something similar in a code-based solution. And then the anchor down at the bottom here is how that data is actually then adjusted. So if I look at my source, notice that I have patient ID, name, sex, date of birth, telephone, email, and I've got all these different formats, even date of birth here. It has standardized. Notice that this date of birth is now in an actual date format as opposed to having the slashes. The phone numbers have formatting added. The first and last name have been split out. And it's made those adjustments to get that source data to that target state. And so if you think about, again, back to this idea of the analyst experience, back to the idea of a business is trying to take the information it has and get to an answer. A lot of the time when we think about what somebody needs, we immediately think back to this is what matters, this beautiful dashboard at the end of the day. But it's important to recognize that data is not perfect, and we need to think about ways to elevate the problem-solving experience so that people can get from question to answer quickly. Because we don't always see the problem-solving in the middle. We only see the final result when we're looking at that analysis. So when you think about how Alteryx is incorporating generative AI, the schema fit is for taking data and standardizing it into a format that you expect. Your precision match is able to address inconsistencies in, say, for example, in a data set, I had Alteryx and Alteryx Inc. and Alteryx 1 and a few other values. It'd be very difficult for me to then consolidate that information and run calculations off of that group because they're actually distinct values. But we're able to use generative AI to dynamically create groupings based on what we would consider non-identical duplicates. So Gen AI is really effective at being applied in a traditional data processing context when it's easily used in these tools that we have delivered directly in product. The prompt tool is also a really interesting one, and I'll highlight that briefly here. The prompt tool allows you to take the power of large language models that your organization has given the green light for. And you'll see here the LLM providers. These would be the large language models that your company has explicitly given access to in the product. It's not wide open access to any large language model that an analyst can use. We recognize that organizations want to have governance around how AI is applied. And so what you're going to see here is specifically the large language model providers and the models that I'm actually able to use in practice. And I can then, similar to how I would interact with a large language model in an interface, I'm able to take the data process that I built, again, with data from different systems that probably don't talk to that large language model natively, and bring those worlds together. But not only that, I can have multiple prompt tools in a single process. And what that means is that I can use different LLM providers and different models so that if I'm thinking about that toolbox to solve problems with AI, I can use the best-in-class models for the specific use cases that I'm actually interested in. So I might find that some providers are really good at extracting information out of invoices, and then others are really good for creating that final deliverable and commentary, and others are really good for extracting data from videos. So by having a single place, you're not locked into a vendor. You're not locked into a single large language model provider. You have access to the toolbox that your organization wants you to be successful with. That's really important, not only for the idea that Alteryx can connect and work with all of these different systems, but that your organization governs that AI strategy in a way that you're comfortable. Now, on the point of that invoice extraction that I just alluded to, specifically within Alteryx, if you think about, and not even just Alteryx, but just analytics and problem solving as we think about it historically, a lot of people are doing the analysis that they require off of structured data. They've got Excel spreadsheets and databases and cloud sources that have data in nice tables that you can run calculations off of. But what about all of that unstructured data? Those invoices, those that's coming from PDFs, those audio files that you want to extract information from and actually use data points from them. You get survey data with commentary. How does an executive team take that information, synthesize it, and turn it into something usable? Maybe looking at different breakdowns of different people and organizations. With generative AI, you unlock the ability to tackle an entirely new set of use cases because people are able to take that unstructured data and actually make it usable. So in this example here, I've got an invoice And invoices, maybe from a certain vendor, may have a standardized format. And historically in Alteryx, you might use tools to extract certain regions of invoices and use those regions to pull the data points out that you needed. But we also recognize there's a lot of variability. Maybe you get invoices from multiple vendors. Maybe you have changing formats even within an existing vendor. So how can we take this unstructured concept and consistently extract that information, as well as build in steps to audit that we actually got what we needed? And so using that prompt tool, like I mentioned previously, you're able to use data directly from a process in that large language model. So I'm able to extract the information from the invoice, in this case using OCR, go through data extraction and specify the values that I actually need to pull from it. And then after I have received the response from the large language model, actually going through a second step in saying, please validate that the information that I extracted is there. It is consistent with the formats that I am expecting to pull in, and specifically call out if there are data ingestion quality issues. And so if, for example, I have a transaction date that is in the second quarter instead of the first quarter of 2025 here, you can see that Alteryx has actually been able to call out that based on what you're expecting, based on the fact that those transactions were supposed to relate to a certain quarter, it's called out a data inconsistency as part of the process. So Alteryx is not just useful for ingesting data from those unstructured sources, but actually putting in those data checks and controls to make sure that you're getting exactly what you expect. So really just bringing this home from a demo perspective, if you think about Alteryx as maybe you've known it historically, and now Alteryx in the context of generative AI, Alteryx has always been about bringing your technology stack together and empowering the people who solve problems. And so by including this functionality that allows people to work with AI effectively, transparently, and get them to a place where they can solve those business problems faster. Again, thinking back to when I was an analyst, this means I'm able to build things more effectively, answer those business questions very shortly after they're asked of me, and then ultimately getting to those deeper insights with things like Auto Insights, where that perfectly cleansed data set is now able to be delivered in a nice format without me having to go through an entire dashboard building exercise. So just quickly wanted to call out a couple of resources. If you like what you've seen, we offer a fully capable 30-day free trial, a full functionality 30-day free trial that you're able to access through alteryx.com/trial. And then I'd also like to call out one other resource as well. It's community.alteryx.com. One of the most amazing parts of this organization is our community. And at community.alteryx.com, you can imagine it is a discussion forum where if you ask a question, you're getting answers in sometimes a matter of minutes, if not hours. And I think about other forums online where I'm trying to get help with different technologies, and maybe I get an answer, maybe I don't. Or I find an answer and someone says, yep, I solved it, and there's no answer provided. The Alteryx community is totally different. People are helping each other and collaboratively solving problems. So I find it's a great accelerator for not just using the technology, but really advancing your organizations. And it also serves as a place of inspiration. So inside the Alteryx community, we have customer success stories. These are stories they've custom curated themselves because they're so proud of what it's done for their organization. So if you're looking for inspiration and what can actually be done with Alteryx, I'd highly suggest going to community.alteryx.com. Even if you don't have a license yet, it is completely free and accessible and something that you can look around in and be inspired. So on that note, my name is Brendan Bach. I'm going to pass it back over to Troy really briefly, and then and to Doug.
Thanks, Brandon. That was awesome. And thank you for walking through those three lenses of how to take data and make actionable insight quickly with the advances with AI. So I appreciate it. And Doug, if we have any questions or anything from the audience, please let us know.
One question that automatically pops to mind is this the beginning of agentic AI for data analytics? I mean, this is at least here at Solutions Review, the magic term we keep hearing, that the agents are coming. And there's certainly some fear, I think, around the idea that agents might ultimately replace data analysts. But this feels to me like it's almost a way to empower analysts rather than kind of turning loose some sort of autonomous agent. Is that how you see it? And kind of where are we in terms of the development curve here for all the things that may be coming?
Doug, I love that question because Alteryx has always been about empowerment. And what we saw today is how people can, they understand their business. They understand the problems they're trying to solve, and they're trying to solution for them. And so while large language models are incredibly powerful, they're only as powerful as we ask them to be, and only as powerful as the quality of data that's ultimately feeding them and helping them make decisions. So what we're seeing in practice is organizations are bringing together the smart minds, the people that they have empowered to solve problems, with AI as really you hear co-pilot as a common term. Full autonomy is kind of an interesting topic because businesses really want the power to define what they're trying to solve and have transparency into how that's actually being done. So when we talk about the concept of agents, specifically in the world of data problem solving and analytics, what you're actually going to see is that people are owning the solutions. People are creating these trusted set of steps and using AI. And then when we think about agents, those agents may be then calling those processes as trusted resources. So those things that people have been able to curate, to give their stamp of approval and say, this solves this problem for my business. When we think about an agent and the toolbox that the agent has to work with, it's ultimately using something that the business actually owns and manages and gives that green light for. So we're seeing it's really a mix of both. Even as we bring automation and agents that are orchestrating different things, having that trusted set of logic is so important, and the analyst is really going to power that.
Well, it feels like the generative AI has a role to play here with regard to the analysis, if you will. I mean, that's kind of how we use it. I think a lot here at Solutions Review is to take a lot of information and start to synthesize some analysis around, trends or directional intelligence. I mean, generative AI has this very unique way of, or a very beneficial way of bringing in this kind of bigger perspective in a kind of 100% pure fidelity way, and then giving you a view that you didn't necessarily have clarity around. I mean, can you see generative AI being a part of that after the data has all been wrung out, or when there's that that kind of disparate data? Can it have a role there in kind of presenting some directional intelligence around the analysis, so that the data analysts can have maybe a little bit more perspective?
Just a quick, we're working with the company, and in practice, the dashboard says it's green all across the board. Everything's great, green, green, green. But then you think it can't be that good. But you're curious. You're a data analyst. So let's go inspire. Let's go figure out what's going on. And it turns out everything is green, but really what's going on is third shift in Virginia is working triple overtime to get that to be green. So while the company looks good, we're paying a lot of time and putting a lot of stress on people that we don't need to do. How do I fix that factory in Virginia to be not running at third shift and overtime to get my green dashboard? Because otherwise it's going to keep on being green. No one's going to do anything. But insights from the data set itself is automatically driven up to the data analysts. And I had the courage to go, hey, this looks good, but let's make it better. So that's the power of the auto insights.
It feels to me, and we do a lot of events like this, and we talk to a lot of companies and a lot of solution providers, and it always feels to me like the weakness of an organization that they don't like to talk about is the quality of their data. And I'm sure you guys, without naming names, have seen a thing or two. But I'm curious what AI-ready data really means. I mean, because ultimately that is the challenge, right? Is having your data in good enough shape so that AI can actually provide some value. So when you talk about AI-ready data, how should we think about it? How should companies be preparing to be at that state?
The thing that's interesting about large language models as it relates to all of these different disparate data sources is when you are purely expecting that the large language model is going to establish all of the relationships and fully understand the context of your business knowledge, you're leaving a lot up to a model to make those decisions. And I'd love to say that everybody does everything the same way, but every business has its own nuance. And so if you think about what AI ready data means, it's data that is brought together and ready for analysis based on how your organization views those relationships to be made. And so if you are able to create these AI ready data sets that follow those patterns that your organization expects in its reporting, you know that the way that your organization is defining those metrics, is creating those relationships, is going to be consistent with what you've been doing and how that's going to be consistent over time. So it's a mix of, like you were asking in the previous question, getting to those insights and having AI tell us all of these interesting things, but structuring it and creating the links between your data and applying the logic that is consistent with how you run your company.
Yeah, this feels a lot like the next level of what we've been hearing for a while now. That it started, I think, no code, low code, and then you kind of empower and extend out these capabilities to the data analysts rather than needing the technical team to come in and kind of do the work and deliver against what the analysts are asking for. How much training is involved for somebody to use the tools that you're demonstrating here? And do you need to be a technical scientist, data scientist, or can you be, kind of more of a business analyst?
One of my favorite parts of this job as a sales engineer is on a very first call where somebody is trying our product, helping them successfully create something. That is so rare these days to be able to just pick something up and build something. And so when we think about the learning curve of Alteryx, I mean, I've been using it 13 years and I'm not bored yet, if that tells you something. But the success that I see with people of all skill sets, this could be someone that's working with spreadsheets today. This could be somebody living in databases. This could be someone working with APIs or building data science models. The market that can use Alteryx is truly phenomenal. And so it's actually a joy because we see success in that very first meeting that we have. And it's only onward and upward from there.
Yeah, Troy, I'm wondering, as people see an event like this and they may be thinking, I might not have what I really need to be prepared for what's coming, and I need to get to that next level, and I might want to consider Alteryx. What should they be thinking about internally? What should they take stock of? How should they be prepping for maybe that first call so that they can start to do what Brandon just said and start to use it straight away?
I think that the really simple answer is have a use case, like come with an actual problem, because it can solve a problem. It's not, do I need to go discover a problem? Do I need to go find something? It's, can I use this today with what I'm already doing? And can I make it better? Can I augment? Can I accelerate? Can I go forward? I can do it real quick. First, just like Brandon said, I can take the tool and use it. So if you already have an existing use case where you're doing this data work, prep or blend or whatever, we can do that today. That's the first step, bringing the use case to us, because we will empower a user or a team to tell that story to their business. I think that's come talk, like Brandon had the slide of come talk to me, come talk to Brandon, or go visit the community. He's absolutely right. The community is fantastic. If you don't want to talk to either one of us, go talk to the community.
So, as we look forward, I think there are a lot of people that are kind of sitting on their hands right now. They're afraid to make a move because things are changing so quickly. And so, what advice would you provide? Maybe Brandon, you can take this one, for people who are not sure whether they should, I don't know, make a leap, align themselves with a particular solution. I mean, maybe you could share a little bit about how you're thinking about the long term without giving away, everything. But I know you guys have some plans. Obviously, the world is changing rapidly. And I do think people are a little bit paralyzed right now with regard to the state of change, and maybe waiting for some other lightning bolt to strike. But what would you say to somebody who knows they should probably be doing something, but are, terrorized by all the changes happening?
The change can be scary, and reflecting on the way that you've done things for a long time can be scary. The risk of not reflecting on whether or not there's a better way is the risk of being left behind. And so my advice to those that work in the space is to be curious, is to reflect, is to think about, what tools do I have to be effective, and what can I learn to grow and to innovate? Because if you're worried about AI taking your jobs, it's not actually about AI taking your job. It's about your relevance, your innovation, your curiosity. And so by jumping on the boat and saying, let's go, let's learn, let's innovate, you are future-proofing yourself. And so my advice is, as you think about it, really take a hard look at the way that you've been doing things. Look at the technology that is out in the world to help you solve your problems, and reflect to see if there's a better way. And here at Alteryx, we'd love to help you on that journey. And we guide customers through every day a better way of doing things. But it starts with you, and it starts with your reflection. So that's all that I ask today, is you think about how this world can evolve with you and not leave you behind.
Yeah, my advice from our perspective is to engage. I mean, you have the opportunity to talk to the greatest solution providers on the planet anytime you want. They will welcome you. They will have a valuable conversation. You're not forced to buy anything. You'll get to see all kinds of interesting innovations and tools, and Alteryx is working at the absolute apex level right now, developing this solution set. So do yourself a favor, engage, and learn a thing or two, because the world is changing, and you really do need to know what solution providers are doing, how they're thinking about it. This was incredibly valuable. I love these conversations. It's always a pleasure to have a high-level presentation from one of the best solution providers. So we appreciate you being in the spotlight today. Best of luck with the rest of the year and into next. and we'll look forward to having you back on in the future. But thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Doug.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Another solution in our spotlight. We want to thank Troy and Brandon and Alteryx for that presentation, and we appreciate your attendance as well. Until next time, I'm Doug Atkinson here at Solutions Review. Thanks for watching.
If your business would like to be featured in a future event, contact us today.